Neo-Atlanta wasn't the city it used to be. It shimmered with neon and tech, sure, but under that glow hunger ruled. Food was rationed, power came in bursts, and only the rich uptown knew what a full plate looked like. Down in the core blocks, where Malik lived, bread was life. The sky was rust orange from the smog domes overhead, and the air always smelled like burnt circuits and iron. Malik pulled his hood tighter and paced fast, his boots slapping the cracked pavement outside Jaya's corner pantry. Inside, shelves were almost empty. A hollow clatter echoed as someone knocked over a tin of synth beans. Malik scanned the rack near the register. There it was, the last loaf, fresh-baked, dense, warm. Jaya only made a few per week now. Malik had been saving his rations for this one. He moved for it, hand outstretched, when a blur of movement shot past him. What the... A slim figure in a torn shawl darted forward, snatched the loaf, and sprinted out the door. Malik caught only a flash of silver skin and glowing eyes. Alien. One of them. "You gotta be kidding me!" he shouted, bolting after her. Outside, the streets buzzed with people bartering, arguing, surviving. Malik shoved through, eyes locked on the girl weaving through the crowd like smoke. She was fast. Her bare feet didn't make a sound as she slid between vendors, ducked a hovercart, and slipped into an alley near the old rail tracks. "Stop! That's mine!" Malik yelled, his voice cracking. He didn't even know why he was chasing her. It was just bread, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the principle. Or maybe it was the emptiness in his stomach, the same one he saw on his neighbors' faces every damn day. The alley was dim, lit only by a flickering ad screen half buried in trash. She was gone. Malik stopped, hands on his knees, panting hard. The loaf was gone, just like that. He cursed under his breath, straightened up and turned to walk away. Then he saw it, a shimmer in the air like heat waves. A faint trail of sparkling dust hung where she'd run, barely visible unless you were looking for it. "Lyrian," he muttered. That's what she was. A refugee from the scattered worlds. They'd started showing up after the war, desperate and starving. Most folks in the blocks didn't trust them. Too different, too alien. Too easy to blame for the way things had gone. Still, Malik hesitated. Something about her eyes. They weren't wild or cruel. They were scared, desperate, like his. He clenched his fists. Nah, not today. He stepped into the alley again, following the fading sparkle. It led past dumpsters and cracked walls covered in graffiti, messages of resistance, of hope, of anger. The deeper he went, the quieter it got. All he could hear was the hum of distant power lines and his own breath. The trail ended at a crumbling maintenance door, half buried in rubble. No sign of her. Malik reached for the handle, then paused. What the hell was he doing? Chasing an alien over a loaf of bread? He should go home. But he didn't move. Maybe this wasn't about bread anymore. Maybe it never was. And that's when everything started to change. Malik stood in front of the rusted door, heart thudding like a war drum. That shimmer in the air was still there, faint, like moonlight on broken glass. It pulsed slightly, almost like it was breathing. He reached out, fingers brushing the air. It tingled, cold and sharp, a warning and an invitation. He didn't hesitate this time. He pushed the door. It opened with a low groan. Inside, the world changed. The hallway was narrow and lined with dim, bioluminescent veins trailing across the walls, organic tech, alien. It pulsed in time with Malik's heartbeat, and the trail of glittering dust wove through the air ahead of him, like a thread pulling him deeper. The further he went, the quieter it became. City noise faded behind thick metal and crumbling concrete. The air turned heavy, laced with something he couldn't name. Ozone, spice, maybe grief. He swallowed hard. Yo, this some real out there kind of mess, he muttered to himself. A whisper floated back, words he couldn't understand, soft, musical. Malik froze. Up ahead, the corridor opened into a wide chamber lit by soft blues and purples. It was like stepping inside a dream, or a wound. Alien symbols pulsed on the walls, and the air was thick with heat and sorrow. She was there. The girl. She sat on the floor beside a shape wrapped in woven cloth, her back to him, head bowed. The loaf of bread sat untouched between them. Malik stepped closer, slow. She didn't move. He cleared his throat. "I ain't here to fight you," he said. "But that bread, that was my last credit. I ain't had a bite in 2 days. Still nothing." Then she turned. Her eyes glowed like twin galaxies, deep and wet with tears. Her silver skin shimmered in the soft light, and up close Malik could see the hunger carved into her cheeks. She opened her mouth, spoke softly in broken English. "Not for me. For her." She gestured to the figure beside her. It was a woman, older, skin dull, breath shallow and raspy. Malik took a step back. "She's sick." The girl nodded. "Dying." And just like that, Malik's anger drained out of him. He looked at the bread again, then at the girl. "She your mama?" The girl nodded once, eyes never leaving his. Something in Malik shifted. This wasn't a thief. This wasn't some alien criminal. This was just a daughter trying to keep her mother alive. Malik dropped to a crouch. "What's your name?" "Sain." He hesitated, then said, "I'm Malik." For a moment, there was silence between them, thick as smoke. Then Sain reached out and gently pushed the loaf toward him. "Half, for you. You chased. You hungry too." Malik blinked. That simple gesture, humility in the face of death, hit him harder than he expected. He stared at the bread, then broke it in two and handed her the bigger piece. "Keep it. I'll figure mine out later." Sain looked surprised. "Why?" He glanced at her mother, then back. "'Cause I seen that look before, when my grandma was dying and all we had was crackers and broth." She gave hers to me too. Sain didn't smile, but something in her eyes softened. They sat there in the blue glow, two strangers from different worlds, sharing silence and loss. Outside, the city rumbled on, oblivious. But inside that room, something had begun. Malik didn't know it yet, but that one choice was about to rewrite everything. Malik followed Sain carefully through the narrow corridors of the abandoned complex. The walls pulsed faintly, casting alien shadows that danced like ghosts. Every step he took made his stomach tighten, fear, hunger, and curiosity twisting together. He had no idea what he was walking into, but leaving now wasn't an option. Sain moved with a fluid grace, silent and deliberate. Malik tried to keep pace, tripping over exposed pipes and debris. "Yo, wait up," he called, breath rough. "I ain't used to this maze." She glanced over her shoulder, expression unreadable, then disappeared down a side tunnel. Malik cursed under his breath and followed. At the end, the path opened into a wide chamber. It was warm, safe somehow despite the smell of damp metal and ozone. Other figures were there, more Lyrians curled in blankets or huddled around low-tech stoves. Malik froze, eyes wide, scanning each face. They were real, breathing, alive, and all of them looked like they had been through hell. Silver skin, luminous eyes, delicate features etched with exhaustion. Yet they carried a dignity that demanded respect. A soft voice spoke behind him. "Oh, you came alone?" Malik spun around. An older Lyrian woman, posture rigid but gentle, stood there. Her eyes glowed softly, and she studied him like a child trying to solve a puzzle. "He is following," Sain said, stepping forward. "He means no harm." The woman's gaze shifted to Malik. "Then you must prove it," she said simply. "Survival here is earned." "Trust is not given lightly." Malik swallowed hard. I don't know how. I want to help." "Help?" Sain's mother rasped weakly from her blanket. Malik approached slowly. The woman's breathing was shallow, and the sound made his chest ache. He realized then that this was bigger than stolen bread. He was in someone else's world, a world defined by fear, hunger, and hope. And somehow he was part of it now. One of the younger Lyrians, barely older than Sain, moved toward him. "You eat?" they asked, voice soft but firm. Malik shook his head. "I have nothing," he admitted. The boy's eyes softened. "Then you will learn to share. That is how we survive." Malik's hands itched. He wanted to do more than talk. He wanted to make a difference, even if it was small. He moved closer to Saeen's mother, holding the remaining half of the bread. "Here, eat something." The woman's eyes flickered with awareness. Saeen's hand hovered over his before taking the bread carefully. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, voice cracking. "You don't even know us." Malik met her gaze. "I know what it's like to be hungry, to see someone you love hurt and not be able to fix it. I can't just walk away." The mother's lips curved into a faint smile, the first sign of acknowledgement in days. Saeen exhaled slowly, relief washing over her face. Malik noticed then how fragile hope could be and how much courage it required to protect it. "Stay," the older woman said, voice firmer now. "You will learn what it means to live among us, not as a visitor, but as one who chooses to survive with us." Malik nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had stumbled into something far larger than himself. The air felt heavier now, charged with expectation. Every shadow, every flicker of light seemed alive, waiting for him to decide whether he belonged or left. He took a deep breath. "All right," he said finally. "I'll stay. Tell me what I need to do." Saeen's eyes met his, and for the first time there was trust there. Not complete, but real enough. Malik felt a strange warmth in his chest, the kind that comes when fear meets purpose. And in that moment, he realized the chase for bread had led him to something far more precious, the fragile, luminous thread of life and connection that tied him to another world. Malik had entered their refuge, but he was about to learn that survival was only the beginning. Malik knelt beside Saeen's mother, his hands hovering over her frail frame. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, like wind through a cracked pipe. He could see the weakness in every line of her body, the way her chest barely rose. Fear gnawed at him. He wasn't trained for this. He didn't even know if he could help. Yet he couldn't leave her like this. Saeen sat beside her mother, her small hands trembling as they rested over the older woman's. "Please, she needs food, water, anything," Saeen whispered, her voice barely audible. Malik shook his head, swallowing hard. He had almost nothing left himself, only scraps of synthetic rations and memories of his own hunger. But watching her suffer ignited something fierce inside him. He refused to turn away. "All right," he said, voice low but steady. "We got to stabilize her first." "I've seen a few things back home, might help." Saeen tilted her head, hesitant. "I don't know if it'll work, she's so weak." Malik met her gaze. "We try. That's all we can do." He dug into his small pack and found a few nutrient gels, the last of his personal stash. He handed them to Saeen, who hesitated before offering them to her mother. The older woman's lips twitched faintly, and she weakly swallowed. Malik's pulse jumped with hope. It was a tiny step, but it was something. Minutes passed, stretching like hours. The hum of the hidden refuge surrounded them, punctuated by the quiet rasping of her breath. Malik gently pressed his hand against her wrist, checking for pulse, while Saeen held the gels, frozen. "She's hanging on," Malik whispered. "Barely, but she's fighting." The older woman's eyes fluttered open briefly. Recognition passed across her face as she saw Malik. Her hand lifted shakily toward him. "Child, thank you," she murmured. Malik's throat tightened. "We're in this together," he said softly. Saeen's lips trembled as she leaned closer to her mother. "I thought I'd lost you," she admitted, voice breaking. Malik noticed the tension in the room, the fragile weight of survival pressing on every soul. For the first time, he realized that helping someone wasn't just about resources. It was about presence, compassion, and courage. The older woman coughed softly, rattling the silence, but the movement sparked determination in both Saeen and Malik. "We'll get her through this," Malik said firmly, "no matter what." He looked around the room. The other Lyrians were watching quietly, assessing, measuring. Trust wasn't instant. It had to be earned moment by moment, through action. Saeen's eyes locked on his. "You're human, but you fight like us," she said. Malik gave a small, grim smile. "I fight for people who need me." Doesn't matter what planet they're from. Time blurred as they tended to her, rotating between offering water, gels, and gentle touches to stimulate circulation. Malik's mind wandered briefly to his own community back home, where elders had struggled similarly against hunger, neglect, and indifference. He saw parallels he couldn't ignore. History had trained him for empathy and resilience. He just hadn't realized it until now. Finally, after what felt like endless moments, her breathing steadied marginally. Not fully recovered, not out of danger, but stable enough to hope. Malik let out a soft breath he didn't realize he had been holding. Sain exhaled, leaning against her mother. "Thank you for staying," she whispered. Malik met her gaze, nodding. "I'm not leaving. Not now. Not ever." And for the first time in hours, a faint sense of hope crept through the chamber, fragile but real, like sunlight on cracked concrete. Malik understood then that survival wasn't just about food or shelter. It was about fighting for life when everything seemed lost. Malik had faced the first real test of his courage and heart. But this was only the beginning of the trials he would endure in their world. Malik sat on the edge of the chamber, staring at the faint glow of the Lyrian symbols on the walls. The bread was gone, the mother stabilized for now, but his mind was restless. He had never faced a situation like this, an alien child, a dying parent, and a world that didn't care. Every instinct told him to leave, to retreat to the familiar streets of Neo-Atlanta. Yet something stronger held him in place. Sain watched him quietly, her hands folded in her lap. "You think leaving is easier," she said softly. Malik's gaze snapped to her. I don't know if I can help," he admitted. "I got nothing to give. No skills, no resources. Just a lot of luck and stubbornness." Sain shook her head. "You already gave what mattered, your heart." Malik exhaled slowly. "Heart ain't enough sometimes. What if your mum doesn't make it?" His voice cracked. He hated the helplessness, hated the weight pressing against his chest. Every choice had consequences, and this one felt like the heaviest he had ever carried. Sain's eyes glimmered. "Then you stay. You fight alongside us, even when it seems impossible." Malik's thoughts drifted to the city outside. Humans had survived centuries of oppression, hunger, and neglect. He had learned to navigate scarcity, injustice, and fear. Maybe that was his edge. Maybe his humanity, the very thing they doubted, was exactly what they needed. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. "I ain't sure I'm cut out for this world," he muttered. Sain followed silently, offering no answers, only presence. Malik stopped, exhaling sharply. "But I can't just walk away. I've seen too much, felt too much. If I leave, what kind of person does that make me?" The old Illyrian woman observed from the corner, her gaze piercing but patient. "Choice defines you," she said. "Your fear is understood, but courage is chosen." Malik considered her words, weighing every possibility. Leaving meant safety, returning to known hunger and familiar streets. Staying meant danger, uncertainty, and moral responsibility. Yet something in him leaned toward action, toward the risk he hadn't yet faced. He looked at Sain, then at her mother, whose shallow breaths echoed softly. Malik's chest tightened. "All right," he said, voice firm, resolute. "I'm staying, whatever it takes. I'm not leaving you." Sain's lips trembled slightly, and she nodded. Malik realized she hadn't expected him to choose that path. The relief was subtle but unmistakable. "Good," the older woman said, her tone carrying quiet approval. "Now you must learn what it means to carry the weight of others. Not as a visitor, but as one who shares our burden." Malik nodded, feeling the gravity settle on his shoulders. It wasn't easy. Nothing worth doing ever was. He knelt beside Sain's mother again, checking her vitals. "We'll keep her stable," he said softly. "Together." Sain's small hand pressed against his arm, a gesture of trust. It was enough to anchor him, enough to make him certain that he had made the right choice. His humanity, his compassion, had found a place here. Outside, the distant hum of the city continued uncaring. Inside, the chamber held a fragile balance of life and responsibility. Malik had chosen not just to witness suffering, but to intervene, to risk himself for others. That decision would define him in ways he could not yet understand. He exhaled again, steadying himself. The moral choice had been made, and though the road ahead was uncertain, he felt a spark of purpose igniting. Malik knew now that survival wasn't just about existing. It was about standing when others could not, about choosing courage even when fear screamed louder. And in that quiet chamber, surrounded by alien light and human determination, Malik understood. He had stepped beyond mere survival. He had chosen to fight, for life, for hope, for connection. The first true test of Malik's character had passed, but the challenges of trust, loyalty, and courage were only beginning. Malik heard the shuffle of footsteps before he saw her. The doorway opened, revealing a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and a long, patterned robe. Her presence carried weight, authority, and something familiar. He recognized her instantly, not from anywhere nearby, but from the stories his grandmother used to tell him about women who could heal, who could make the impossible seem possible. "This must be Malik," she said, voice calm but commanding. "I'm Tia Yvette. You've made a choice most wouldn't dare." Malik rose, uncertain. I don't know if I can do enough." "I mean, I've never—" Tia Yvette raised a hand. "You're doing more than you realize. The willingness to stay, to care, that is where true power begins." Sain looked at Tia Yvette with awe, clutching her mother's arm. You can help?" she whispered. The healer nodded. "Yes, but it requires focus, faith, and respect for what has come before. Are you ready to listen, Malik?" He swallowed hard. "I am." She stepped closer to the frail Lyrian mother and began to move her hands slowly, pressing them near her chest, over the areas where life seemed weakest. Malik noticed how Tia Yvette's touch was deliberate, almost ritualistic, yet gentle. "The body holds knowledge," she explained. "And the heart remembers." Malik watched intently as subtle warmth spread from her palms into the older woman, whose shallow breathing seemed to deepen slightly. "You see," Tia Yvette said, "humans and Lyrians are not so different. Both need compassion, connection, and courage to survive. History has taught our people to endure suffering, to nurture those who cannot stand alone. That is why we heal, even when it seems hopeless." Malik nodded slowly, absorbing each word. His past, growing up in neighborhoods where care was sometimes the only defense against neglect, suddenly felt relevant here. The lessons he had learned in scarcity, patience, and solidarity were applicable across worlds. He stepped closer, offering his hands where Tia Yvette indicated. "What can I do?" she asked, scanning him with a sharp, understanding gaze. "Trust your instincts," she said. "Assist where needed. Speak life into the moments of despair. Sometimes the smallest gestures save the largest spirits." Malik exhaled, feeling both nervous and empowered. "All right. I can do that." Minutes passed as Tia Yvette moved around the room, mixing low-tech remedies with her knowledge of ancestral methods. Malik and Sain followed her instructions carefully, helping with water, pressing cloths, and offering gentle encouragement. The older woman's breathing slowly became more regular, a sign of progress. Malik realized that healing was not simply a matter of medicine. It was presence, persistence, and belief in what could be. Sain's eyes glimmered with hope. "I didn't think anyone could help," she admitted. Malik put a hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes the right help comes from the past, from the lessons we didn't know we were carrying." Tia Yvette smiled knowingly. "Exactly. Strength is passed down through generations, through stories, actions, and courage. You are living that now." Malik felt a surge of determination. The risk, the fear, the uncertainty, it all seemed secondary to the clarity of purpose. He had chosen to stay, to intervene, and now he was seeing tangible results. He knew this was only the beginning, but he also knew that hope was alive in this room, fragile but persistent. Tia Yvette's gaze swept over him and Sain. "Remember," she said softly, "the past guides us, but action defines us. Keep moving forward. Protect what is vulnerable. Stand when others cannot. That is how we survive." Malik nodded, feeling the weight and the promise of her words. He wasn't alone anymore, and neither was Sa'in. Together, with knowledge, care, and courage, they had a chance to face whatever came next. The lessons from the past had arrived to shape the present. Malik understood that survival required more than instinct. It required wisdom, action, and the courage to stand for others. The calm Malik had felt moments ago evaporated like mist. A sharp mechanical whir reached his ears. Drones, government drones. The hum grew louder, vibrating the walls of the hidden refuge. Panic rose in Malik's chest as he grabbed Sa'in's arm. "We gotta move, now!" Sa'in's eyes widened, terror and urgency mixing into a storm. "They found us," she whispered. Malik nodded. "Yeah, no time to explain. Just follow me." He looked around, assessing the narrow tunnels. The glow from the Lyrian walls cast shifting shadows, making every step unpredictable. The refuge that had felt safe only minutes ago now seemed like a trap. The older Lyrian woman stirred, weak but aware. "Stay calm, use the back passage," she urged. Her voice carried authority despite frailty. Malik helped her to her feet, supporting her weight. "We're taking you to safety," he said. "You ready?" She nodded slightly, too weak to speak. Malik glanced at the other Lyrians, who were gathering their few belongings, their faces pale but determined. Survival wasn't optional anymore, it was mandatory. They slipped into the tunnels, moving quickly but cautiously. Malik's heart pounded, every footstep echoing against metal and stone. Outside, the distant hum became a high-pitched whine, signaling the drone's proximity. Malik cursed under his breath. "They're fast. Too fast." Sa'in clung to his side, breathing shallow but steady, her trust in him complete. He felt a strange surge of responsibility. Protecting her wasn't just about saving one life, it was about honoring every choice that had brought them here. A sudden clatter made Malik stumble. One of the younger Lyrians whispered, "Careful. Debris." Malik steadied himself and helped the boy over a low wall. The group moved like a single organism, instinct guiding each step. Hunger gnawed at Malik's stomach, but the urgency pushed it aside. There was no time for weakness now. Through a narrow vent, they emerged into a larger chamber, the air thick and warm. Smells of scorched metal and synthetic food lingered. Malik looked at the map in his mind. He knew they had to reach the ventilation shaft that led to the maintenance exit. Every second counted. One mistake, one misstep, and the drones would descend. Sa'in tugged his hand lightly. "Malik, what if they catch us?" Her voice trembled. Malik squeezed her hand firmly. "They won't. We move fast, stay quiet, and keep together. We're stronger than they expect." The weight of his words carried both reassurance and determination, and for a moment, Sa'in seemed to believe it. They navigated the winding corridors, occasionally ducking behind supports as the drone's light swept past vents. Malik noticed the subtle signs of exhaustion. The way one Lyrian lagged slightly. The way Sa'in's mother leaned heavily on him. He gritted his teeth. Hunger and fear were gnawing at them all, but stopping was not an option. Every choice now was survival. Finally, they approached the last barrier, a wide metal door, rusted but functional. Malik pushed it open slowly, scanning the hall for threats. Outside, the distant city lights blurred through cracks. They had made it this far, but he knew the danger wasn't over. Beyond the door lay unknown territory, but Malik felt a resolve burning brighter than fear. "Almost there," he whispered to Sa'in. She nodded, leaning on him. The older woman's eyes followed them, trust and hope shining despite weakness. Malik realized then that protecting them was bigger than his own fears. It was about embracing responsibility, about standing firm when others could not. Hunger, fire, fear, they had met each one and endured. And even as the drone's hum faded behind them, Malik knew the struggle was far from over. But for now they had survived another trial together. Malik had led them through fire and hunger, but the true test of courage and loyalty awaited just beyond the next threshold. Malik's footsteps echoed as he stepped into the dimly lit hallway, the hum of the city distant behind him. Ahead, a figure leaned against the wall, familiar yet unrecognizable in this tense moment. It was Darius, Malik's childhood friend, now wearing the uniform of a government enforcement officer. The badge glinted in the low light, a symbol of authority and division. "Malik?" Darius's voice was cautious, wary. "What are you doing here?" Malik's jaw tightened. "You tell me, man." "Working for the drones now." Darius shook his head. "I'm just doing my job. You know the rules." Malik stepped closer, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. "Rules? Tell me, do your rules include letting people die? Alien kids? Mothers? You think that's justice?" Darius frowned. "They're illegal. They don't belong here. You know that." Malik exhaled sharply. "I know. And I also know when humanity is more than laws and borders. Sometimes you gotta stand for life even when the law says don't." Sain edged behind Malik, silent but attentive. Malik placed a hand on her shoulder. "You hear me? This is bigger than us. Bigger than fear or rank. It's about what's right." Darius's eyes flickered with hesitation. Malik continued, voice firm. "You and I, we grew up together, saw our families struggle. We learned to protect what mattered even when the world tried to take it away. You feel that same thing now, right?" Darius swallowed, silent. The badge felt heavier in his hands, like it weighed his conscience down. Malik stepped aside, motioning toward the frail Lyrian mother. "See her? That's life. She's dying. She's scared. She's someone's family, and if you follow the drones, you're not protecting anyone, you're just enforcing death." Darius's hands tightened into fists. Malik could see the internal struggle in his friend's eyes. Duty versus morality. Law versus life. Malik knew he couldn't force the decision, but he could make the choice clear. "I ain't asking you to desert your duty," Malik said softly. "I'm asking you to choose humanity, to remember who you are, who we were, what we learned together. This is your moment." The words hung in the corridor, heavy and palpable. Darius's eyes darted to Sain, who peered cautiously from behind Malik, then back to the older woman breathing steadily. Malik could see his friend's heart battling logic, training, and fear. Finally, Darius's shoulders slumped. "Malik, I don't know if I can—" Malik shook his head. "You can. Just do what's right. Stand with life, even when it costs you everything." Silence followed. Then Darius exhaled, lowering the badge. "All right. I won't interfere, but don't make me regret it." Malik nodded, relief washing through him. "You won't. But listen, life needs defenders. People like us. People who choose courage over orders. This is bigger than fear, Darius, bigger than rules. It's about humanity." Darius swallowed hard and stepped aside, allowing them passage. Malik glanced at Sain, then at the older woman. "We move now. Stay close. Keep steady." The hallway ahead stretched long, uncertain. Malik's mind raced with possibilities and dangers, but he felt a new strength, a reinforcement of purpose. They weren't just escaping, they were fighting for every life that might otherwise be ignored. Every step forward was a testament to courage, moral conviction, and the choice to protect the vulnerable. Malik felt a surge of determination. Fear and doubt lingered, but the decision to act, to defend life, anchored him. He knew survival required more than cunning or strength. It demanded heart, awareness, and unwavering resolve. And for the first time since entering this strange, dangerous world, Malik felt fully alive, fully human, fully committed to standing for those who could not. Malik had confronted not only external danger, but the inner conflict of another human, reinforcing the true meaning of courage and empathy in a world teetering between survival and destruction. Malik knelt beside Sain's mother, watching Tia Yvette work with focused precision. The healer's hands hovered over the older woman's chest, moving rhythmically as if conducting a silent orchestra. Malik couldn't help but marvel at the quiet power in her touch, the way each movement seemed to pull life back into fragile bones. "What is she doing?" he whispered. Tia Yvette glanced at him, eyes calm yet intense. "Connecting the body to its roots," she said. "Sometimes the most advanced technology cannot heal what the past has scarred. But ancestral wisdom, That can awaken strength. Sa'in leaned closer, voice trembling. Will it work? Tia Yvette's gaze softened. It already is. But you must help, Malik. Your energy, your attention, your compassion, they matter as much as my hands. Malik nodded. He shifted closer, placing a hand gently on the mother's shoulder, offering warmth and presence. He realized that the act of staying, of giving attention and care, was itself part of the cure. Minutes passed. The older woman's shallow breaths began to deepen. Subtle warmth radiated from her chest, a sign of recovery. Malik's heart raced, hope rising with every flicker of life he sensed. Tia Yvette began chanting softly, words in an ancient dialect interwoven with gestures. Malik listened, absorbing the cadence, the rhythm, feeling as though the pulse of history itself ran through the room. He could sense generations of knowledge and endurance flowing into the fragile body beneath him. Focus on her strength, not her weakness, Tia Yvette instructed. Malik closed his eyes briefly, picturing the woman's life, the struggle, the resilience. He whispered encouragement, small affirmations born from memory and instinct. Sa'in followed, softly murmuring phrases her mother might recognize, bridging worlds through love and voice. The mother stirred slightly, eyelids fluttering as awareness returned. Tia Yvette smiled faintly. See, even the smallest attention can awaken great power. Humanity, history, care. They are forces stronger than any weapon. You have learned this lesson well, Malik. He exhaled slowly, absorbing her words. The room seemed lighter, charged with subtle energy, a testament to what collective effort and compassion could achieve. Malik felt a quiet pride in his ability to contribute, even in small ways. The mother's breathing grew steadier, chest rising and falling with more strength. Malik glanced at Sa'in, whose expression mirrored his relief and awe. She's improving, Malik said softly. Yes, Tia Yvette confirmed. And it is because you chose to stay. Because you brought courage, attention, and humanity into this space. Malik realized that healing was not a simple task of medicine or intervention. It was presence, empathy, and persistence. It required belief in life itself, in the interconnectedness of all who suffered and all who survived. The room held a quiet intensity, a fragile energy that had been built by the combined determination of human and alien alike. Sa'in exhaled, leaning slightly closer to her mother. Malik placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. We did it together, he said softly. Tia Yvette nodded, the faint glow in her eyes reflecting satisfaction. Remember this lesson, she said. Wisdom of the past, combined with compassion of the present, can save lives that logic alone would abandon. This is how we endure. Malik absorbed the words, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The mother's pulse, once faint, now carried life steadily. He understood then that survival was only part of existence. To truly protect, one had to engage with heart, history, and unyielding empathy. The ancestral cure was more than ritual. It was the bridge between despair and hope, between fear and resilience. And as Malik sat there, hands still gently pressing for warmth, he realized that hope was no longer fragile. It had been awakened. The ancestral cure had begun to stabilize the dying mother, reinforcing the bonds of trust, empathy, and resilience between Malik, Sa'in, and the healer. Sa'in leaned against Malik, her small frame trembling slightly as she exhaled. I didn't know you'd stay, she whispered. Malik offered a faint smile, squeezing her hand gently. I told you, he said softly. I'm not leaving. Not now. Not ever. Her eyes glimmered with a mix of relief and newfound trust. Malik realized then that the bond forming between them was deeper than survival. It was connection forged in adversity. He glanced at her mother, now breathing steadily under Tia Yvette's care. Every rise and fall of her chest felt like a victory, small but significant. Malik placed a hand lightly on Sa'in's shoulder. You know, sometimes survival isn't just about running or hiding, he murmured. It's about standing with those who can't stand alone. Sei nodded slowly, the words sinking in. The chamber around them hummed softly, a rhythm that seemed alive, resonating with the heartbeat of both human and Lyrian. Malik felt an unexpected calm. Trust, once fragile, had started to cement itself in shared purpose. He had learned quickly that the Lyrian's vulnerability was not weakness. It was a reminder of the responsibilities that came with compassion. Saein's voice broke his thoughts. My father. He used to say something like this, that bonds across stars. They're rare but strong. He called it stellar blood. Malik chuckled softly. Stellar blood, huh? I never heard that one before. Saein's lips curved faintly. It's what holds families, even distant ones, together. And maybe it's what just held us. Malik studied her, realizing she spoke with more wisdom than her years suggested. Maybe you're right, he said. Maybe these trials, these struggles, they're meant to connect us, make us stronger. The older Lyrian woman observed silently, her gaze soft but approving. Malik could feel her recognition of the effort, the courage, and the choices that had been made. Each life touched in this chamber carried weight, significance, and history. He understood then that bonds weren't built solely by proximity. They were forged in shared hardship, in acts of bravery, and in commitment to another's life. Malik leaned back slightly, closing his eyes for a moment. He thought about the streets of Neo-Atlanta, the hunger, the constant struggle to survive. Those lessons, honed in adversity, had brought him here. And now they were being tested in ways he could never have imagined. Every choice, every decision, every risk taken reinforced the invisible threads connecting him, Sain, and the older woman. Sain's hand slipped into his, small and tentative. Malik returned the grip, steady and reassuring. We'll get through this, he said, voice firm. Together. Her eyes glimmered, a combination of hope and trust. Together, she echoed softly. Malik felt the weight of his promise, not as a burden, but as a guide. Responsibility, courage, and empathy intertwined in a delicate balance. The ambient glow of the chamber bathed them in soft, otherworldly light. Malik understood that life, survival, and loyalty were interconnected, not just within species, but across them. Bonds like these, he realized, were rare, formed not from blood alone, but from choice, courage, and shared adversity. In that moment, he felt the full magnitude of the responsibility he had embraced. He turned to Sain, offering a small smile. Stellar blood, huh? I think I get it now. She returned the smile, faint but real. For Malik, this wasn't just about saving lives anymore. It was about building trust, understanding, and connections that transcended planets, cultures, and species. And in that quiet chamber, the bond among them was no longer fragile. It had become a force capable of carrying hope, resilience, and the promise of survival. Malik and Sain had formed a bond that transcended worlds, cementing trust and resilience, and preparing them for the challenges yet to come. Malik's hands tightened on the railing as he scanned the horizon. The faint hum of engines grew louder, carrying a mechanical rhythm that made the hair on his arms stand on end. The city outside was restless, unaware of the shadow descending from above. Government ships, sleek and lethal, cut through the twilight like predators hunting prey. Malik's stomach knotted. The invasion was no longer a rumor. It was here. Sain stepped closer, voice trembling. They're coming for us, she whispered. Malik swallowed, exhaling slowly to calm his rising panic. Yeah, he said, jaw tight. But we're not going to let them take her, or any of you. Not today. His eyes swept over the group of Lyrians huddled behind him. Trust and dependence radiated from their small, fragile forms. Responsibility pressed against Malik like a physical weight. The older Lyrian woman, despite her frailty, lifted her head and spoke with a firm, commanding tone. We knew this day would come. You must prepare, Malik. Your courage will be tested. Malik nodded. He didn't need convincing. He could feel it in his bones. Every choice he had made had led to this moment. Fear was present, yes, but it had been tempered by resolve and shared purpose. Sain glanced up at him, eyes wide. "What do we do?" Malik crouched slightly, pointing toward the tunnel system. "We move fast, stay low, and use the hidden passages. They'll sweep the streets first, but we have an advantage. They don't know we're here." He paused, locking eyes with her. "You trust me?" She nodded, voice firm. "I trust you." That simple affirmation steadied Malik more than he expected. Trust, once fragile, was now an anchor in the storm. Malik guided them through the narrow corridors, heart pounding with every step. Above them, the hum grew deafening, lights flickering as the ship's sensors scanned the city. Every tunnel corner, every shadow, became a potential threat. Malik felt the weight of leadership in each decision. One wrong move could cost lives. Hunger gnawed at him, but the instinct to protect overrode all else. Survival was no longer personal, it was collective. A sudden vibration shook the floor. Malik grabbed Sain's arm. "Keep moving, don't look back." She obeyed, small feet pattering against the metal, matching his pace. Behind them, the older woman leaned heavily on his shoulder. Malik felt the strain of responsibility intensify. Each breath, each pulse reminded him that their lives depended on focus, cunning, and courage. They emerged into a wider chamber, momentarily safe from the sensors above. Malik exhaled, scanning their surroundings. "We can plan from here," he whispered. The Lyrians, though frightened, looked to him for guidance. Malik realized then that leadership wasn't about fearlessness. It was about presence, decisiveness, and reassurance. Every choice reinforced the fragile thread between survival and catastrophe. Sain's hand found his again, a silent promise of trust. Malik squeezed back, silently acknowledging that they faced this trial together. The hum outside grew louder, a reminder that danger was imminent. Yet Malik felt a strange clarity. He had faced fear before, and now he would stand not alone, but with those who depended on him. Courage wasn't absence of fear, it was action in spite of it. He exhaled slowly, feeling the weight and responsibility sharpen his senses. The invasion wasn't just a physical threat, it was a test of will, of moral courage, and of the bonds that had formed between human and alien. Malik knew the coming hours would define them all. Malik faced the first signs of an organized assault, aware that survival now required every ounce of courage, strategy, and trust he could muster. Malik stood before the gathered community, his chest tight with tension. Around him, human and Lyrian faces were turned toward him, eyes reflecting fear, hope, and the weight of impossible choices. The distant hum of government drones lingered at the edges of the city, a constant reminder that time was short. Tia Yvette's voice broke the tense silence. "We cannot wait any longer. Decisions must be made. We choose our path tonight." The council of elders, mostly humans from the neighborhood, nodded slowly. Malik felt their eyes on him, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Would he lead them? Would he guide them in protecting these fragile lives? He swallowed hard. "Everyone," he began, voice steady despite the storm in his chest, "we're at a point where hiding isn't enough. If we do nothing, they'll come and take them. Mothers, children, anyone in their path. We've survived by looking out for each other, by protecting what matters. That doesn't stop now." Murmurs ran through the crowd, but Malik held up a hand. "We are choosing more than survival. We're choosing humanity. We're choosing courage. We're choosing to protect lives that can't protect themselves." His words resonated in the chamber. Sain stood beside him, small but resolute, her hand on her mother's arm. Her presence was a silent reminder of the stakes. Malik realized then that leadership wasn't about orders, it was about inspiring courage in others. An elder stepped forward, voice quivering but firm. "It is dangerous. If the drones retaliate, the entire block could suffer. But if we do nothing, we become complicit in their deaths." Malik nodded gravely. "I know the risks. And yes, it could cost us. But we cannot let fear dictate our choices. We protect who we can when we can. That is the only way to honor our humanity." Sain's eyes shone with gratitude, and several young Lyrians moved closer, trusting Malik's resolve. He scanned the humans in the room, their faces hardened by struggle, yet open to the call for action. Malik knew this unity was fragile, yet it was stronger than any drone or weapon. Strength wasn't just physical, it was moral. It was the courage to choose empathy over self-preservation. A hush fell over the chamber as Malik's words sank in. Tia Yvette nodded subtly. "Good," she said softly. "This is why you are here. Leadership is not born of power alone, but of willingness to stand for what is right." Malik felt a mixture of pride and fear. He knew the choice carried consequences, but he also knew it was necessary. Their lives, fragile as they were, depended on the collective courage of those present. He turned to Sain and whispered, "We do this together. They're counting on us." Sain nodded, her fingers tightening around his. Malik glanced at the Lyrian mother, steady now under Tia Yvette's guidance. "We move as one," he said to the crowd. "Every person here, human or Lyrian, is part of this. We fight not for glory, but for life." The room held a tense quiet, a collective understanding forming. Fear was present, but it was now tempered by resolve. Malik realized that choices made in unity, even under threat, were more powerful than any solitary act of courage. Tonight, the community had chosen not just to survive, but to act with conscience, honor, and humanity. He exhaled slowly, heart heavy yet resolute. The path ahead was uncertain, but they would face it together, bound by courage, empathy, and an unwavering commitment to protect life. The community united under Malik's leadership, choosing moral courage and collective action over fear, preparing to defend both human and alien lives. The air felt different as Malik led the group through the underground tunnels, thicker, charged with anticipation. Every step echoed louder in the silence, the weight of their choices pressing down like the earth itself. The hum of government drones had dulled, but Malik knew they weren't far behind. The city was awake, alert, and the last vestiges of safety were slipping through their fingers. Sain walked beside him, her hand clutching his arm. "Do you think we'll make it?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might make the walls collapse around them. Malik looked down at her, his gaze steady. "We'll make it. We have to." The group behind them moved in quiet unity, the fear palpable but tempered by resolve. The older Lyrian woman was supported by Tia Yvette, who guided her slowly but steadily. Their footsteps were rhythmic, determined, as though the earth beneath their feet had become a bridge between two worlds, one of fear, the other of hope. The passage ahead seemed endless, twisting like a labyrinth designed to trap them, but Malik refused to let the doubt creep in. He could hear their breath, their movement, the sound of his own heart. This was not just a flight from danger. It was a fight for survival, for something more than just existing. Sain's grip tightened. "Malik," she said again, her voice strained. "What happens if we don't make it?" Malik turned to face her, his eyes locking with hers. There was a quiet strength there that reassured him, even as his own doubts threatened to rise. "We will make it. Together." She nodded, though her expression remained uncertain. Malik understood. They weren't just running from the drones. They were running towards something better, something worth fighting for. The light at the end of this dark passage wasn't just freedom. It was a chance for a new life, for both humans and Lyrians alike. They reached the end of the tunnel where the air shifted, cooler and fresher. Malik could feel it before he saw it, the faint light that flickered from the outside world. He took a deep breath, then turned to the group, his voice low but strong. "We're almost there. Stay close. Keep moving." As they stepped into the final stretch, the light grew brighter. Malik could feel the weight of the city's oppression begin to lift, even if only for a moment. They had made it this far, but the final step was always the hardest. The risk of being caught was still high. He could almost hear the distant roar of the drones circling the city like predators. But there was something else now, something more powerful than fear. It was the light ahead, promising safety, freedom, and hope. They were nearly there. They had crossed the threshold into the unknown, but they would not be alone. Sain looked up at Malik, her eyes full of uncertainty but also trust. "Do you think they'll ever accept us?" she asked, voice barely audible. Malik paused for a moment, his gaze never leaving the light ahead. I think they will, in time. We just have to show them that we're worth it. The group pressed on, moving with quiet urgency, their bodies and spirits propelled forward by the knowledge that this was their one chance. The city might have tried to break them, to divide them, but they had chosen to stand together to fight for each other. As they reached the exit of the tunnel, the full intensity of the light washed over them, blinding at first, but slowly revealing a new world. The city was still there, looming behind them, but this was the beginning of something new, something they would build together. Malik took one final breath before stepping into the open, the others following closely behind. The fight wasn't over, not yet, but they had taken the first step. Together. The escape into the light marked the beginning of a new chapter, where survival meant more than just evading danger. It meant building a future based on trust, unity, and hope. Malik stood in the dim glow of the refugee camp's perimeter, his eyes scanning the horizon. The escape had been successful, but the feeling of safety was fleeting. The group had made it out of the city, but now they were on the outskirts, surrounded by vast stretches of wilderness. The Lyrians were weak, their bodies fragile from hunger and fear. And in the midst of it all, one simple memory kept playing in Malik's mind. The loaf of bread. The bread had been the spark. The moment everything had changed. He could still remember the heat of the bakery, the soft, crusty loaf he had been so desperate to claim, only for Sci-Fi to snatch it from him. He hadn't known it at the time, but that loaf had been a symbol of survival, of loss, and ultimately of hope. He closed his eyes, letting the wind wash over him, the faint scent of pine in the air. "You saved her," Sci-Fi's voice cut through his thoughts. Malik opened his eyes to see her standing beside him, her small frame silhouetted against the rising sun. "You saved all of us." Malik looked at her, his chest tight. "We did it together," he said softly. "None of us could have done it alone." He thought of the others, Tia Yvette, the older Lyrian woman, the group of children who had followed them, scared but resilient. They had all played a part in getting here, and they would all play a part in what came next. Sci-Fi stepped closer, her eyes searching his. "You know, I never understood why you didn't keep the bread. You had the right to it." Malik chuckled bitterly. "I was hungry, but that wasn't what mattered. It wasn't the bread. It was her, your mother. She needed it more than I did." He took a deep breath, the weight of it all settling in. "It's funny, isn't it? The smallest things can save lives." Sci-Fi looked away, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I think it's more than that," she whispered. "It's the connection, the choice, the sacrifice. You could have kept it for yourself, but you chose to help. You chose life." Malik didn't answer at first. He couldn't. The words felt too heavy, too close to the truth that had been unfolding over the past weeks. They hadn't just survived. They had become something stronger, something better than they had ever been alone. The bread was the start, but it wasn't the end. It was the choice to stand up, to offer what little you had, even when it seemed like nothing would change. "What now?" Sci-Fi asked, her voice trembling. "What do we do next?" Malik turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "Now we rebuild. We find a place where we can start over, where we don't have to hide or be afraid." He paused, his gaze drifting toward the others, who were already starting to set up camp, their faces worn but hopeful. "We do it for them. We do it for us." Sci-Fi nodded, understanding. "We'll make it," she said, a fierce determination in her voice. "We'll make it because we have to." Malik nodded, his resolve solidifying. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were living. They were a community now, bound together by choice, by sacrifice, and by a shared purpose. The road ahead would be difficult, but they had each other, and that was enough. He turned back to the horizon, the rising sun casting a golden light over the landscape. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. And as Malik looked out at the future, he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just the end of their struggle. It was the beginning of something new, something worth fighting for. The loaf of bread had been a symbol, but the true power lay in the choice to sacrifice, to stand together. Now they were ready to build a future where survival meant more than just existing. It meant thriving. Malik stood at the edge of the small camp, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The fire crackled softly, casting warm, flickering light on the faces of those around him. They were no longer the frightened group of refugees who had fled the city just days ago. They were a community now, bound by shared struggle, by survival, and by something deeper, something that no one could take from them. The weight of leadership rested heavier on Malik's shoulders with each passing day. But it was no longer a burden. It was a responsibility he had chosen, a path forged not by power or authority, but by compassion, sacrifice, and the unwavering will to protect those who needed it most. Sain sat nearby, her eyes focused on the fire. Her mother had recovered, slowly but surely, and now Sain looked out into the future with the same fire in her eyes. Malik knew she had come a long way from the scared girl who had stolen that loaf of bread. She had grown in ways he hadn't expected, more resilient, more determined. She had become the bridge between two worlds, human and Lyrian. "You think they'll ever accept us?" Sain's voice cut through the quiet, though her tone was more reflective than uncertain. Malik glanced at her, meeting her gaze with a calm smile. "It doesn't matter whether they accept us or not," he said softly. "What matters is that we're here, and we're here together." Sain smiled back, a mix of gratitude and a hint of sadness in her eyes. She looked down at her hands, her fingers tracing the rough texture of the fabric on her lap. "I never thought it would be like this. I thought it was just about surviving, but this is different." Malik nodded. Survival was the first step. Now, it's about what we build from here. He stood up and walked over to the group of Lyrians who were quietly tending to their camp. They looked up at him, their faces full of trust, expectation, and silent acknowledgement. These weren't just alien refugees anymore. They were part of a new community, one that transcended species, one that Malik was determined to protect. Tia Yvette approached him, her steps slow but steady. She had always been the matriarch, the guiding force behind the Lyrian refugees. She placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. "You've done well, Malik," she said, her voice full of both pride and warmth. "You've led them here. You've made them believe in something bigger than just survival." Malik looked at her, his gaze filled with respect. "I couldn't have done it without all of you," he replied. This is just the beginning." Tia Yvette's eyes softened. "The beginning of something new, something that doesn't rely on fear or division. You are the guardian of this bridge now, Malik. The bridge between the past and the future, between fear and hope." Malik felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. It was a heavy mantle, but it was one he had come to accept. This wasn't just about protecting these people, it was about forging a future where everyone, human and Lyrian alike, could live without fear. A future built on the very values that had brought them here: compassion, courage, and the belief that life was worth fighting for. He turned back to the fire, the light dancing in his eyes as he spoke, more to himself than anyone else. "We're not just survivors anymore, we're builders, we're protectors. And we'll make sure that no one else has to go through what we did." Sain stood up and walked over to his side, her presence grounding him, reminding him of how far they had come. "Together," she said, her voice firm. "Together," Malik echoed. And for the first time in a long while, Malik felt a deep peace settle within him. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, struggles, and obstacles, but he also knew that they had something far stronger than fear, the unshakable bond between them, the will to create a new world from the ashes of the old. As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Malik stood tall. He was no longer just a man on the run. He was a guardian, a protector, a leader. The bridge between worlds was his to defend, and he would defend it with everything he had. Malik had become more than just a survivor. He was now the guardian of a new future, a protector of the bridge between two worlds, ready to build a better tomorrow.